I always saw music as a business, as work. And my deal with God was, listen, if I can feed my family through this, if I'm 85 and I never sold 10 million records, so long as all I had to do was wake up and go to the piano or go to the guitar or go to the microphone, I'll be content.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Curtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio, and Ayiesha Woods, Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and musician. Together, they talk with artists and industry insiders to discover our connection between music and faith. You can connect with us on Facebook or Twitter at Between Grooves. Now, here's James and Ayiesha.
Excuse me. Did you hear what I just heard?
I heard that. I heard that. That's the first time I've heard that. That is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited.
It should have happened sooner. I mean, how long have you and I been chatting on Between the Grooves for the last few months? But now it's official. Your mugshot is on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Look, I've been on probation.
I guess, if you want to call it that. This is a Grammy-nominated, Dove-nominated artist, and you're on probation? Yeah, I don't think so. Exciting news. Well, it is episode 237, and as the first official episode with James Curtis and Ayiesha Woods as the co-hosts of Between the Grooves, we have a very, very special guest. And this is a conversation that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I know you have as well. And
I have.
Talk about a down-to-earth guy.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what. It has been such a blessing.
Oh, no.
He said he gets this all the time, but I just had to do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be cool if I didn't. But it was a blessing to talk with this guy.
He's had number one hits like Brighter Days, right on the top of the charts, if not at the top, almost at the top. The collaboration he did with Toby Mac called The Goodness. He's got a new song that has just dropped called Believe as well. We'll hopefully get a chance to chat with him about that. Blessing Offor on Between the Grooves this week. Anyways.
No, you are all right.
Okay, good stuff. Well, what a privilege to have you on the show. Can I tell you, I love the songs that I've heard from you. Man. And I can't believe, well, there we go, Believe, your latest single that just dropped. And that was unintentional.
No pun intended.
But
look at God. I love it.
Great songs. Now, whose idea was it to collaborate with Toby Mac? Was that you or his label or him directly?
Honestly, I got a text from my manager, and they're like, hey, what do you think about this song? Toby's asking if you'd like to feature on it. And first of all, he had me at Toby.
Yeah.
Secondly, I listened to the song and I was like, oh, I could sing this. and
that's awesome.
Met Toby for the first time at a studio, and he is as real as they come. And we just clicked immediately. He's just every bit of the good person you'd want a Toby Mac to be. And it's immediately like your family. So it was all good vibes in the studio. We just had a lot of fun together.
I'm still waiting for a text from Toby too. So
they are hilarious. I'm going to tell you.
Right.
Toby texts are amazing.
Yeah, I guess so. It must be nice to be on the short list because I haven't made it there yet. So the A-list, is that what they call it? The A-list in the Christian community?
Listen, it's funny because you can text Toby and never hear anything back because he's just like, he's Toby Mac. But man, when Toby texts you, it's like Christmas. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So what made it happen for you career-wise? I know you came from Nigeria and like a lot of artists, there's a lot of people kind of doing the grind for years and years and years before they quote unquote get noticed. So for you, was it the voice or was it just, you getting recognized in the Christian community and then moving to Nashville or something? Like what was the deal for you?
It's interesting for me, and I think just because of how I grew up in the Northeast, in Connecticut, I was really, really blessed to have a lot of great music mentors who kind of showed me that this was as much a business as anything, and that it always helps to be as versatile in the business as possible. So like I went to school and learned theory and learned arranging and learned composition and learned, how to like the mechanics of music as opposed to just
That's
like,
great.
oh, I woke up and I want to be a songwriter. You know what I mean? So like, which is fine too. A lot of people do that, but if you left me to my own devices, I could do a lot of things. I MD'd for people, when I was in high school, I led youth choir and all this kind of stuff. So I always saw music as a business, as work. And my deal with God was, listen, if I can feed my family through this, if I'm 85 and I never sold 10 million records, so long as all I had to do was wake up and go to the piano or go to the guitar or go to the microphone, I'll be content. So that was always the baseline, right? And then on top of that, I grew up on jazz and gospel. When I moved to Nashville for the first time to go to Belmont, I would play all my fancy chords and notice that it wasn't quite connecting. You know what I mean? Like they were like, oh, that's cute. He's really smart at music. Cool. You know what I mean? And then some dude would come up that barely knew how to play guitar and would sing a song that would break your heart. Right.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, something is different here. Why can that guy who doesn't know any of the chords that I do move a room in a way that all my right? He can move a room in a way that my fancy chords just didn't, right? Yeah. And it just dawned on me like that guy is A, being vulnerable, B, being honest, or C, speaking at the level of his audience, so to speak. So like in a room of 100 people, all my jazz chords goes over the head of 94 of them.
Sure.
There'd be the 6 people that'll come up to you and they'll be like, oh man, I love that Neapolitan you did. You know what I mean? And oh, that's so cool. And then you guys would geek out in the audience and then you can't pay rent the next month. So that's fun. You know what I mean? But if you talk to people, A, you reach more hearts. B, you get to say something to a bigger swath of humanity. And C, you probably pay a little more rent. So I was like, man, all the people I grew up loving, all the Motown guys, all the Marvins and Michaels and Stevies and Donnies and James Taylors and, the greats, they somehow knew how to speak the people's language, even as smart as they were musically. So, there was a point where I was just like, man, I want to do that. So I think that was kind of the beginning of me learning the craft of simplicity after spending so much time learning the craft of like intricacy. You know what I mean? So move to Nashville was a huge, huge thing. Doing The Voice was awesome. Pre The Voice, I'd lived in New York and I was already looking at music as a job, not like, cool, let's get famous. I was like, okay, cool. Like I was a session musician for stuff. I'd written for a bunch of kids that were kind of trying to come up in the Disney system a little bit. So just the grind. Did The Voice. Enough people knew who I was. But again, it's like I had a lot of friends on The Voice at that point. So I knew that it was like it was a thing, but it was not a career maker per se. After The Voice, I moved to Nashville. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow through with this simplicity thing. Yeah. And again, I love country music. Country music taught me a lot. I think country music and Motown are not terribly distant cousins. You know what I mean?
Right,
like they're all about storytellers and feelings. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so the same thing I learned from Motown, country solidified for me. And so I was just like, all right, I'm going to spend every day writing better and better songs and just let the rest be, because, a lot of times people are worried about results, right? Like, but if you're going to dedicate your life to something, you just have to worry about the daily practice of it. Sure. And so that was just where I was. I was like, I'm going to daily practice this thing. And man, I'm not going to say it happened overnight, but eventually traction. And listen, I have a lot of friends that are infinitely more talented that haven't gotten traction. And I have a lot of friends that are maybe not as versed in the intricate arts of music that are infinitely further along. So you can't look at it based off of like how far or how many people know this person. It's a journey, and we all have to be at peace on the journey. And that's the only healthy way to do it, you know?
That's true. You know, you talked about being able to pay your rent and family. What's your family look like?
So right now, most of my family's still back in Nigeria. My uncle, my uncle lives in Central Florida. He's an attorney. My aunt and my cousin live out there with him. My cousin is in college. And like I said, most my brothers and sisters in Nigeria. I have a brother in the UK right now. So we're kind of spread all over, and that's it.
Wow. Okay. So no significant other at this time.
No, ma'am.
That could change without notice, of course.
You know, listen, snap of a finger, right?
Yeah. You know, you mentioned getting down to the simplicity in your music. Have you ever had the urge, or have you ever kind of thrown in some of those wacky jazz chords into your music just to let the intellectuals and the people who really appreciate the music know that you've got the skill?
You know, I feel like that's why you come to the live show.
Right. There you go.
You know what I mean? But listen, my tribe has a couple flexes. It's got a couple musical little moments. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll do like a 5 of 6 once in a while. The record that we're finishing up has definite musical moments that I'm very proud of. But like the point is to sneak them in there so that it doesn't disturb anybody that doesn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And that's always it, is like, if you're really smart, you can make it so that, you know, whoever's in the car doesn't feel tripped up by it, you know, but if they do know, it's like they say, you know, if you know, you know, right? If you know, I just did a flat 2. If you don't know, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it goes.
I have a friend of mine, years ago, I went to this church, and this guy was just a brilliant guy. He wasn't a singer. He was a musician. He was brilliant on the keys. We happened to have in the church at the time a Hammond organ.
Oh, come on.
Oh yeah. And it was amazing. And do you know, when you're, in praise and worship and you get to that moment where it's just kind of, an open-ended free praise moment. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
So we got to one of those moments, and I was blown away, because normally what you do, in music is you raise a key, like you'll do a key change,
modulate.
Up. Yeah. Yep. He went down.
Oh, yes,
he went down.
Wow.
And it was incredible. It's the first time I'd ever heard it. It's like, whoa, what is going on? This is amazing. So like to have that skill and that ability, and I was the sound guy, so I'm listening to what he's doing, and I'm actually appreciating it, and nobody else really notices. They're just praising God, but that's what he did. It was like, whoa. And
that was a moment.
It was a moment, and it was one of these once in a lifetime moments, because I haven't heard anyone do it since. Like it was just in the moment. It just happened. It was like, whoa, that was wild. You know?
And to do it in a way that it still feels like you gave energy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of Motown stuff, like a lot of Donnie, you know, and sometimes they'll do a modulation so smooth that you don't even realize you modulated, but you're like a minor third above where you started, and you're just like, how did we get it? And then you have to go back and study what just happened, because that's craftsmanship, you know.
I like doing that when I listen to music on the radio, when there's that subtle key change that the average person wouldn't necessarily notice. It's like,
they wouldn't catch it.
He's in a different key now, and
yes, he is.
And look how he did it, you know?
Yes.
Right.
So what you're saying is we can expect some surprises like that on the album.
Listen, the record is a very musically, it's a wide palette, but if you don't need to notice, you won't ever notice. But if it's in your head to listen for it, you will appreciate the record coming out. Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. How many instruments are you playing on this project?
I'm playing piano. I'm playing guitar. I think I play some synth stuff.
Sweet.
I'm doing a bunch of, obviously, a ton of vocals, but that's pretty much it. We keep it simple.
So if we could take a step back for a moment, You were born and I guess somewhat raised in Nigeria.
Yes,
I say
sir.
somewhat
6
because
years in Nigeria.
At that time, did you have a musical idol?
You know, it's funny. At that time, all music was for me was how our family had fun together. Like we sang all the time. Just because it's just, you'd sing like silly songs, you sing worship songs, you sing, you know, kid songs that your parents taught you, you know what I mean? So it's just, we all sang. I think most cultures, I dare say, just have music in them, especially African cultures, very sing music heavy. Latin American, I mean, what am I saying? Every culture just sings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Max Martin, Swedish guy, the Swedish language is like the sing-songy language. I think we just, everybody sings. Singing is this human, natural thing that just must happen. And we really, really embraced it. So singing when I was a kid was just a way to have fun. And when I came to America, at some point you develop self-consciousness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to sing in front of anyone, because then it becomes like a performative thing. So that kind of happened. And then at some point I was just like, I really like singing. So I started singing really quietly in my room. I'd put on a record and be like, try to mimic all the Brian McKnight runs, you know what I mean? Or like all the Boys to Men runs. And I'd be like, I think I can do these. Yeah, I got this. You know what I mean? It's like, okay. And then I'd try it out on my friends. I'd be like, do you like this? Does this sound good? And I'm sure I asked some middle school girls out on a date with singing to her or something, you know what I mean? Like just like silly things. You're like, okay. You start building confidence. I remember the first time playing and singing in middle school, I was so nervous and it sounded so atrocious. And I just really hope no one has video of it, because it was bad.
It might surface. So you never know.
Oh no! May it never. May it never.
When you least need it, that's when it'll show up. Yeah.
Wow, gross.
So it sounds like you had a wide variety of, I guess, even styles of music, because you've talked Motown, you talked jazz. There's obviously pop in your sound as well.
Country, yeah,
and country as well.
Above.
Yeah, country is like, there's so much especially when you talk about the CCM world. I've seen even in the last 12 to 24 months a lot of country edging in there.
Yes.
More so than before. And even gospel. And everybody considers gospel music Christian music and CCM music almost, but it isn't. It's two distinct things. But all of that's kind of creeping into the CCM world right now.
You know, I welcome it. I think that when someone says Christian music, you should almost wonder what they mean, because it shouldn't be so safe. Yeah. So I think it's awesome. I think it's exciting.
I think it's a nice change.
You know, the more the merrier.
Same old, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. I think the listeners are like intrigued and excited by it. So,
So if you could pick one artist that you who's your favorite artist on your Spotify or your playlist right now?
Oh my God. I love that question.
And don't get in trouble.
That's a difficult question, because a musical guy wouldn't have just one, right?
Yeah. Oh no. Right. There's hardly just one. Like my ringtone is a Marvin Gaye song right now, for instance. Like,
okay.
So that takes me there. John Mayer is heavy on my list. Ed Sheeran is on my list. There's a lot of Motown on. Stevie's on the list. Like Lionel Richie's on the list. There's a guy named Sam Henshaw, British artist, who's on the list.
Okay.
Got some Leon Bridges is on the list. So it's a varied list. There's some really, really interesting country songwriter artists right now that I listen to very heavily. Jason Isbell, Chris Stapleton, of course. There's a guy named Mitchell Timpenny. He's really super good. So I keep my ear to everything just because it makes me better personally. So, yeah.
Would you ever come out with a country album?
Oh God, yes,
Really?
1000%. Yeah.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
No, I just don't see that.
Call me.
I just don't see
you
that.
Listen.
Bro, let me tell you. I'm gonna tell you. Like you don't. You would be so. You know what? In fact, you just made me. So I did a cover of. There's a song called "Paint Me a Birmingham," right? And I did a cover of it this weekend, and I'm gonna post it today just because of that.
Okay.
I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna do a reel of it, and I just want you to make sure you watch it and comment, because I do it in a very blessing way. But country music is wonderful. I always feel like what I don't like is when people make country records and try to like take on a twang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it sounds inauthentic.
Right.
Especially when they don't have a natural, especially when they don't have that natural twang, and all of a sudden,
exactly. You're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, but I love when Lionel Richie does country, because like Lionel Richie used to write songs for Alabama. You know what I mean? And like soul music and country music are not distant. Like I said, they're not too far apart. I did a song with Lee Brice about 2 years ago. And Lee Brice is one of the bigger country artists in the world right now. And dude, it's a natural thing. I was literally talking to someone about this morning. I can't wait to put out a country record. It's going to be awesome.
That is so funny, because I thought that would be the furthest thing from your mind.
Oh, no. It's in the wheel. I mean, I live in Nashville.
Oh, I know.
It's in the wheelhouse for sure.
The first radio station I ever worked at was a country radio station. And that was back in the day when all the country kind of sounded the same. It's think classic country. This was before the what they called new country,
bro country, if you will.
Yeah. And so it was like I can name some artists, but I don't want to make it sound like it's a negative thing. But they really did all sound the same.
Was it the like Mr. Mom era where like country artists were like guys that were struggling with fatherhood?
Well, that and their truck and everything else. And
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Was it the like she had a son on a white t-shirt. She was killing me on that mini skirt. Was it that era?
Sure. I mean, the lyrics are all the same. It's just the beat and the sound is all the same too. That's what I'm saying. It all sounded the same. And I was just not a fan. But I was in radio, so I had to fake it and pretend.
So
I
you had to fake it, yes, sir.
So
listen, we've all done things that we had to pretend
just
we
had
liked.
to do.
Yeah,
man. Good gracious.
So
you have to do.
Because of that, I've got
do.
that bad taste in my mouth with country music. But having said that, there's a lot of great country artists and a lot of great music. So yeah, if you're going to do a country album, I think that'd be great. And in fact, it'd be a great crossover from what you're doing now as well. There's so many synergies between CCM and country, especially in the Nashville area. You'd be very readily accepted, I think.
And the thing is, I think honestly what I would first do is do a record of country covers. Do you know what I mean? Just to
kind of break them in.
Yes. And because I think that's a very easy, doable thing to take a country song and make it kind of my own version of it.
Right.
So I've given this much thought. I don't know if I've told my managers about it. So they're going to hear this and go, wait, what?
So you've got Dove Nod. Speaking of the music, new artist of the year.
I don't even know how that happened.
On that.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. They called me and told me that. I was like, oh my God.
That's exciting.
So, again, I wake up and pretty much do what I did before all this happened, which is go to the piano and find song ideas. Yeah. And every once in a while I look up and things are happening. So, the one of my mentors told me that the trick is to not pay attention to that stuff and just keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I embrace that mentality wholeheartedly. Yeah.
You're talking about continuing to do what you've been doing. One of the things that I really admire about Toby, like every day he designates time to write, write, and he hones in on his craft. Do you have any kind of, I guess, rituals or things that you follow like that?
I every New Music Friday, I go down that playlist on Spotify.
Awesome.
And then on Apple Music, I download the records I need to listen to. So Spotify is kind of how I explore. Apple Music is how I study. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I break it down in my head. So every Friday I go down and explore, and then I go over and I say, okay, I'm going to listen to this record, and I go through records. And my ritual is to always be listening to what artists are doing that have nothing and everything to do with my genre. Just because like you never want your lyrical palette to get stagnant. You never want to keep using the same words over and over again. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I make a point to kind of stay fresh on what everybody's kind of how people are pushing. And I have this text window with myself. So I'm texting myself and I write ideas in it and just hit send. So it sends it back to me. And that thing goes back 4, 5, 6 years. So there are ideas that I've forgotten about that once in a while I'll scroll back to and I'll be like, oh my God, that's a good idea. I went to church yesterday and the pastor was speaking on Luke. And she said something about Egypt. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, Egypt is a great song idea. And, you know, I'm not here to give away song ideas, but, you know, I was like, just the idea of Egypt as not a literal place, but being in Egypt, being in bondage. And I was like, ooh. So I wrote down a little concept, sent it to myself, and that's what I'm going to write. So I think my practice is just to keep my ears wide open for songs that are always floating in the air, just waiting to be caught.
Right.
And when are you writing the music? Do you actually book time in your schedule to do that, say on a weekly basis, or are you waiting for songwrites with other people?
So 5 days a week, unless I'm traveling or shooting a video or something, I have writing sessions with producers, and then on the weekends I just sit with my guitar or my piano and see what happens. So there's always opportunities to put them down. So I'm very happy and blessed by that.
You know, it's really annoying. Can I just throw this out? My brother is a pastor. He's a lead pastor in a church, but he's a whiz when it comes to music. And when I was a teenager, I had a job at a hardware store. And, you know, I'm working my tail off because I want to put myself through college. So I'm saving up for tuition and stuff like that. My brother was doing the same thing. He was working at Kmart when Kmart was around. And he ultimately became the manager of he ultimately became the manager
Kmart.
of the electronics department. And then he abruptly quit his job. And he literally stayed in his room all day playing guitar and got to be brilliant on the guitar. Wow. And that's just not fair. You know? You're basically writing music every day and all day and having too much fun. Can I say you're having way too much fun?
You know, my life is unfair. And I'm convinced that surely I must be God's favorite because I get to wake up and walk 15 steps over to my piano or my guitar, and then just like I have a balcony I can just sit on and pick at chords and pick at riffs and licks, and that's legitimately part of my job. So,
right.
You know, what can I say?
It's wonderful. You're able to get up and do what you love to do and make a decent living at the same time. Man, can't ask for anything better.
Come on. Amen.
Have you heard anything yet from the people at the Dove Awards? I mean, it's typically a show, like any award ceremony. I'm assuming, like, I've got to think they're going to be asking you to perform there.
You know, that'd be a beautiful ask, and I'd be happy to.
But they haven't yet, is what you're saying.
Whether they have or not, no one's told me of it.
Okay.
And you know what? When they tell me, I'll be ready.
Okay.
If they tell me, I'll be ready.
There you go.
I would not be surprised at all. So I was hoping that we were going to get some kind of inside scoop just now.
Some kind of breaking news.
But obviously not. I mean, it's not like I know something that you don't know in this case. I I was hoping that you could.
I was like, are you telling me something?
No. I don't know anybody at the Dove Awards. I don't know anybody there. Sorry. Maybe I will after this. Who knows? You know?
Exactly. They're going to call you.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your new song? It has just dropped. It's called Believe. And I listened to the first little bit of it, being a radio guy, and I'm also the music director. Usually you're just listening to the first 20 seconds of a song to determine if it's going to be a hit or not.
Right.
And this one, as a lot of songs I found in the last few weeks, starts off a little slow, but it's a great song.
Thank you. Believe is a thinker, to be honest, and I'm okay with that because I think it says what we're all thinking in our heads. So it's this kind of rhetorical practice where you're saying to God, it says, "So you'll catch me when I fall, right? And you'll hear me when I call crying, and you'll fix me when I'm broke, right? And that's all I need to know, right? And the storm is going to break, right? And every day I'm going to be smiling and and everything's going to go right. And that's all I need to know. Right. So it kind of, in the verses, it kind of simplifies in a very elementary misunderstanding kind of way what Christianity or faith looks like. And then in the pre-chorus, it says, but what if you know something I don't? What if you will something I won't? If you don't give me what I want, but you give me what I need, is that enough to believe? Right.
Wow.
So it takes the listener on this journey of tongue-in-cheek, dare I say, prosperity, faith, and then takes you into this pre-chorus of reality, because God doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do. God only gives you what he knows is for your best, whether you know it or not, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the chorus, it challenges the listener is challenged by themselves to say, ultimately, will I believe? And that's kind of how the process of the song goes. And verse 2 says the same thing. And the bridge says, do I love you? Do I love you? Do I love you? Or what you can do for me? Do I want you? Do I want you? Do I want you? Or what you can do for me? Sometimes I don't know, but all I want to do is believe, you know?
Yeah.
So
good stuff.
It's a thinker.
Yeah. A great way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those songs that the listener will hear it and almost maybe be offended by it. You know what I mean? And that's okay because, you know, I think sometimes we need that little extra push into the deep end. You know what I mean? It's nice to be on the shallow end of victories, but it's okay to still be in the war. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I think it'll be good for anybody who can hear it and give it that minute to walk through that process.
I think initially, like many songs, it's going to be one of these songs that people listen to and they like the song where they haven't really necessarily analyzed or listened deeply to the lyrics yet. And it's going to be one of these things where they listen to it for a while and all of a sudden it kind of dawns on them what the song is really about.
Yes. And that's, you know what? Much like we said at the beginning, if you're good at your job, you don't force the listener into it. They kind of fall into it. You know what I mean? You don't have to let them know how analytical your brain is. They'll discover it, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And that's kind of the joy of I think songwriting as a craft is knowing how to put the things in there that need to be in there without going, look how smart I am. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's, so deep. I love that. Yeah. Look how deep I am.
or overcomplicating. Like you talked about simplicity in the music and the chords and everything else. You can, it's easy to, especially if you know a lot about music to get overcomplicated and make it too busy. And that's why they always say, you know, a bass line on a song in church or whatever else, just play the one note. You don't have to play the note. Yeah, you don't have to go crazy. Yep. And you don't have to have all these instruments competing against each other, right? Just keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Yeah. So and especially kind of when you have a song that's super heady, you kind of want to keep the chords simple and vice versa. If you have a song that's super simple, you can maybe get a little more adventurous with the chords. is always what I found.
Blessing, it has been an honor chatting with you. It has been a blessing.
A blessing, dare we say?
You must get that all the time, though, right?
Yes.
There you go. Listen,
Sorry.
really appreciate it. Appreciate your heart, and what a privilege to chat with you. And really looking forward to seeing you perform at the Dove Awards.
Thank you, guys. Hey, speak it.
Speaking it, that's right.
Thank you guys so much. Let's do it again, please, soon.
That would be awesome. Thanks,
Yes.
Blessing.
For sure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, what a down-to-earth guy. Just love that conversation with Blessing Offor. And he said to us that he wants to come back. So we're going to have him back on the podcast one of these days. This guy is so knowledgeable when it comes to music, and just love what he's doing. The fact he's been doing this for many, many years, but finally getting recognized for all of his efforts and his talent and whatnot. Right. Make sure you check out his website, blessingoffor.com. That's blessing, OFFOR.com. And there you'll find more about him, find out about his music, events, and social media as well.
And right here, we're going to dive into our artist advice for this week. It's coming from the man himself, Mr. Mac Powell.
I think my advice is to just do it. Just get out there and play as much as you can. If you're a singer, artist, what you want to do is like every chance you get. If it's singing or playing at a birthday party, Sunday school class, talent show, every little don't look to just doing big things. Be faithful in the small things, and go enjoy that, and work on developing your talent. Use that as a catalyst to really reach out and grow your fan base. And so I think that's it. It's just do it as much as possible, even if you're only doing it online. You post stuff all the time. Be faithful about doing enough that will keep people's attention, but not too much. And, you got to just keep working. Keep working, and don't be afraid to do the little things.
Sounds like Nike, just do it. I like what he said about using your talents, and he didn't actually say this directly, but he basically said, don't sit on it. Don't bury your talents. You've heard the story in the Bible about the many talents that were given out, and the people that actually did something with their talents. And if you're just going to put it in the bank and just let it sit there, you get a little bit of interest, but it's not going to go very far. Being faithful in those small things, whether it be in church, at events, or whatever else, just keep working at it. Keep working at it.
It's even further confirmation. It's funny because that was the message at church yesterday. This very thing, faithfulness and being a good steward over the resources that God has given us. So it was just a sweet addition and reminder, even for me.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Well, that is it for this week. We are out of time. What a great episode. Enjoyed having Blessing Offor on the show. It was nice to hear back from Mac Powell as well. And we appreciate you following us and liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, @BetweenGrooves. If you've got any comments, be sure to leave them. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening to Faith Strong Today's Between the Grooves podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider sharing it with your friends, rating our podcast, or giving us some love on your socials to your amazing friends and followers will only help us reach more people. We'd also love to hear from you and share your feedback in an upcoming episode. Send your video or written message to Ayiesha and James on Facebook and Twitter @BetweenGrooves, or email us anytime, hello@faithstrongtoday.com.